The turning pages. It appeared one evening without a sound. The moment I noticed it, it was already there, on the third shelf from the bottom, wedged between the cartographer's lantern and an old ledger I had not opened in years. Its spine was plain, covered in a muted brown cloth that looked neither new nor old, as if it had existed outside the idea of time. There was no title, no author's name, not even a mark to suggest it had ever been purchased. The first time I touched it, my fingertips came away dusty. The cover yielded under my palm with a softness I can only compare to worn leather gloves. Inside, the paper was thick, coarse to the touch, with faint lines like dried riverbeds. Each page was covered in a single, careful hand, the ink dark and unfaded, though some entries were dated nearly a decade ago. But what caught my breath was the date on the first page I read. It was tomorrow. The handwriting described events with unsettling precision, the exact weather I would see when I opened my window, the way the clouds would hang low and bruise-colored, the sound of the milk cart rattling past just as I lit my first cigarette. And then, it described me, by name, taking the long path through Hollow Street instead of the main road, because I would feel an unshakable urge to avoid the crowd near the tram station. I closed the book quickly. It felt almost indecent, like walking into a room where someone was undressing. But curiosity does not weaken, it waits. That night, sleep did not come easily. My mind wandered in slow, anxious circles until morning arrived. And then, everything unfolded exactly as the page had promised. The bruise-colored clouds. The milk cart rattling by. The urge to take Hollow Street. I told myself it was coincidence, a trick of the mind, some desperate need to make the world fit the shape of the words I'd read. But when I returned home that evening, I found the diary again, and the next page had already written itself. I had never owned such a thing. I did not know who placed it there, nor why. Each day, the pattern repeated. I would read the new entry, and then live it. No matter how small or strange the detail, the day bent itself to match the ink. Sometimes the diary recorded trivialities, the way a loose tile would shift under my shoe, or the exact pattern of raindrops against the kitchen window. Other times, it was more intrusive, a shadow I would glimpse in the reflection of the glass, or the moment I would drop a spoon, not because my fingers slipped, but because something behind me whispered a name I could not recognize. Soon, the entries began to describe things I did not want to know. Moments I could have gone my whole life without anticipating. One entry, dated 5 days ahead, told of a dead bird I would find on the landing, its wings still warm, but its eyes glazed over. I had no reason to believe it, but the morning arrived, and there it was, lying against the wooden floorboards exactly as described. Another spoke of a letter I would receive, unsigned, containing only a photograph of myself taken from across the street. The photograph arrived 2 days later. I began to dread the turning of each page. But dread, too, is powerless against curiosity. There came a day, a Wednesday, when the diary stopped writing about the mundane and began to fill with something I could only call warnings. It described a figure I would see standing outside my building, not moving, not speaking. The entry said I would pass them, glance once, and never be able to describe their face, not because I could not see it, but because my mind would refuse to hold the image. When Wednesday arrived, I tried to stay indoors. I did not step out for the milk or the paper. I kept the curtains drawn. Yet, when evening fell, I saw it, the figure, across the street, exactly where the diary had said. My vision blurred the moment I tried to focus on them. My thoughts scattered like startled birds. All I knew was that they were watching. And the instant I looked away, the space they occupied felt impossibly empty, as though no one had ever been there at all. By then, I had stopped sleeping well. I would wake in the middle of the night to find the diary lying open on my desk, though I had closed it before bed. Pages would be turned as if by an unseen reader. Once, I caught the faint sound of paper shifting in the dark, though no one else lived with me. And then, the entries began to reach further ahead. At first, it was tomorrow. Then the day after. Then an entire week. It began to write about things I could not yet comprehend, places I had never been, corridors lined with windows that opened to no outside, voices speaking in a language I did not know but somehow understood. The diary began to anticipate me. It knew the things I would try to avoid. If I chose not to follow what it described, the words would change while I wasn't looking. Once, I deliberately ignored its instructions, refusing to take the path it mentioned. When I returned home, the entry for that day had been rewritten in fresh ink, accounting for my defiance as though it had predicted it all along. I no longer knew if I was shaping the diary, or if it was shaping me. And then I reached the entry dated for today. It began with a simple line: "When you turn the page, you will see the end of this story." I sat there, staring at it for hours. My hand hovered over the edge of the paper, the faint rasp of it against my fingertip. Outside, the day moved without me. Shadows lengthened. Somewhere, a bell tolled. I do not know if I am ready to see what comes next. The page waits, patient as stone. And I am still deciding whether to turn it.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next one. Thanks for listening.